What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 424. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty
drafting?
Well. Yeah, we actually delayed the show by about 2 minutes as I finished a draft that involved Profane Procession. Profane Procession.
Wow, that card just... And we're going to be talking about that, by the way, that card and many others in this episode.
We have to.
Yes, we do have to. We are obliged to do. So this is the Rare and Mythic Rare set review show for Rivals of Ixalan. And oh boy, do we have some rares to talk about in this set. Man, I've only done the pre-release. I only did one pre-release and 2 drafts, and I've already ran into some rares and I'm going, is this card for real? Even some of the ones I happen to have in my pre-release. Unbelievable cards. They've really kind of gone nuts with these rares, and we're going to dive into each and every one of them, Rare and Mythic Rare, on this episode. Before we do...
Actually going to do all but one of them. We won't say which one. You'll have to figure it out by process of elimination.
Dude, we should... No, we're not doing that. No, you're poisoning my mind. I'm not going to be like you, man. No. Although that would be really funny. We've never missed a card, though.
In that case, I have a really good sign-off for today.
There's never been a card that we missed, right?
No.
In a set review. All right. Before we get into the nitty gritty on these rares and mythic rares, channelfireball.com. They are the sponsor of this podcast. We're proud to have them as our sponsor because you know what? They're the best. The best place to go online for everything you need magic related is channelfireball.com, period. And the cool part is that while you're there, you get access to premium, awesome, free content from some of the best players and content producers in the world. It's right there on the front page. Anything you want to find about standard, about modern, about draft, about, sealed like we do, this kind of stuff, including this podcast, by the way. You can even find it right on the front page of CFB. You're going to find it there. And again, premium player, Reed Duke. Right? I mean, he's one of the best players in the world, consistent performer. William Huey Jensen, Eric Froelich, Paulo Vitor Damarosa, Luis Scott-Vargas. The names go on, and they're there for one reason: help you get better at Magic. The same reason that you come here to that, and that's why I'm proud to be affiliated with Channel Fireball. And of course, while you're there, buy the cards there, right? That's why I'm talking about it here. You can get singles. You can get sealed product. You can get supplies, limited resources, sleeves, and deck boxes. They got them in stock. If you want to show people that you care about value at your next tournament, you can pick up some sleeves there and kind of one-stop shop. Also, make sure you remember to sell your cards back to them. You get a bunch of rares doing the pre-release or doing some drafts at the beginning of the set. If you're not going to use them, send them back. They'll even give you 30% back as a bonus if you're trading them in for store credit. Also, the show is brought to you by you. And this part's really important. This is patreon.com, and this is the kind of preferred method for content creators to have their shows be supported by the listenership, which I think is a beautiful marriage. And we really appreciate each and every one of you that heads over there and pitches in a buck. The way I like to say it is, look, if we've helped you win a booster pack over the course of a month or something, that's worth a few bucks. You can pitch in and help us out with the show. It's completely optional, but you get some cool bonuses if you do sign up for it. And again, all the details are at patreon.com/limited resources. Okay, Luis, let's get into this. First things first, grading scale. We got to talk about the grading scale real quick, go over it for people that are new to the show, and then we'll be jumping right into white for the rares for those of you following along at home.
Alrighty, we're going to start with our highest grade, A. Well, I guess technically A plus is our highest grade. Our highest letter grade, A, which are the bombs, game winners, cards that are good in many situations, especially when behind. The best cards in the set. There's a ton of them here. You usually find more A's in the rares and mythics, more F's too, and there's a lot of A's here. So these are cards like Hostage Taker, Vraska, Relic Seeker, Regisaur Alpha. Mm-hmm. Next up are B's. These are cards that actively pull you towards their colors, the cards that you want, and will pull you into a tribe, into a pair of colors, into a clan, into a guild. Tribe being the most important one here. These are cards like Walk the Plank, Vine Shaper Mystic, and Imperial Aerosaur. The C's are playable. Pawns of Limited, these are fairly interchangeable, but you are going to play some amount of them. Not going to see as many C's in the rare categories. They tend to be really good or really bad. So cards like Frenzied Raptor, Skynight Legion, and Brazen Buccaneers. D's are sometimes playable. You'd prefer not to run them. They're mediocre and junky cards like Wily Goblin, Verdant Rebirth, and Gilded Sentinel.
Do we ever have D's that are rares and mythic? It's not.
It's pretty
often.
Hard.
Yeah.
You see a lot more in this next category, which is F. Virtually unplayable in all scenarios, incredibly narrow. 15 drops. These are cards like Primal Amulet, Sentinel Totem, Sanguine Sacrament. We also have two subcategories. We have sideboard, cards that you're not going to start in your main deck, but you will sideboard in. Rares tend not to fall into this category either, but these are cards like Crushing Canopy and Demystify. And then build around. There are actually a lot of rares that tend to be built around. These are cards that are not good enough on their own, but if you have the right cards to pair with them, they can be great. These are cards like Favorable Wind and Makeshift Munitions.
Yeah, we'll keep our eye out for those ones. And why don't we get right into it, Luis? We're kicking things off once again with white. And the first card is called Bishop of Binding. It's 3 and a white for a creature, vampire, cleric at rare, and it's a 1/1. Ooh. All right, well, this better be good. When it enters the battlefield...
Well, it is good. You know it's good.
I do know. It has to be, right? If it's a rare and it's a 4-mana 1/1, it must be good. If it's not, then they screwed up. Let's see how good. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature, an opponent controls until Bishop of Binding leaves the battlefield. All right. And whenever it attacks, target vampire gets +X until end of turn, where X is the power of the exiled card. Now you can target itself, right?
Very good card. You would play it even without the second ability. You'd play it if it just exiled a creature until this left the battlefield.
Right.
But on top of that, this attacks, because it can target itself, as, frequently a 4/4 or 5/5. So this is a great card.
So the idea being you exile a 3/3 with it. When it attacks, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Yeah, it's a 4/4 as an attacker.
Can attack with this and give a different vampire +X/+X. So
yeah.
What's going to happen most often there is on the turn you want to kill them, you give your flyer +3/+3. If they kill this, they get the card back. So it is a 1/1. It will die to removal a decent amount of the time.
Yeah, it dies to basically any removal, but they have to have it.
That said, this is an A-, because if it doesn't die, they've lost a creature and you have a big attacker. This card is very, very good. You don't need to be in vampires to play this. You'd play this if you were just white.
It's also just a classic 2-for-1. Right. It's just you're taking away something from them and you get something worthwhile on the other side. And it is. So I don't like it as a blocker, but it's taking away the attacker. Love it. A- for Bishop of Binding. Next is Paladin of Atonement. This is another vampire. This one's 1 and a white for a 1/1 vampire knight. And it says at the beginning of each upkeep, if you lost life last turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Paladin of Atonement. And when it dies, you gain life equal to its toughness.
Also worth noting, lost life counts damage. So that's right.
Yeah, that's a good point because sometimes people get confused on that. So if you take combat damage, if a creature hits you, if they use a burn spell on you, Paladin of Atonement just starts growing once every turn.
It gets 1 counter per turn that you take in damage. So even if they attack you 2 or 3 creatures, you get 1 counter. Yeah. That kind of the trick here is you want to play cards like Dusk Legion Zealot, which is the vampire cards that make you pay life. So then you're getting a counter
card,
on your.
By the way.
Well, card's great on your opponent's turn. And then when this dies, you get a bunch of life back. I think this card's good. I don't think it's insane, but if you play this on turn 2, let's say they play a 2-mana 2/1 Menace, and you play this on turn 2, they might not really want to attack you.
It is interesting, isn't it? And really all you need is to get it to 2/2 before you're like, okay, fine, right? I would have paid 2
in
mana
that situation.
for the 2/2 anyway.
Either it's a 2-mana 2/2 that when it dies you gain 2, or they don't attack you and it already kind of traded for their creature, especially since you can then attack them if you want to, or you can sit back. And it can grow larger later.
This seems good. So what about is the down case scenario or the bad scenario when you draw it really late in the game or when you draw it almost dead?
It's just going to be a 2-mana 1/1. But see, here's the thing. 2-drops generally aren't good when you draw them late.
Yeah.
And this card, if they're hitting you with a evasive creature, maybe it still does something. You can sacrifice and gain 1 life.
True. And of course, whenever it becomes a 3/3 or a 4/4, you just feel like you're doing it. Yeah. So I like Paladin of Atonement. This card seems like a B to me.
I think it's closer to C+, B-. I don't think it's fantastic, but I think it's good. I think you'll play.
I think turn 2 you're going to be like it's a B, and then I think turn 6 you're going to be like okay it's a C+.
Yeah, I guess I'll
go B- on. All
right, I'll give it a C+.
All right, well we'll meet not quite in the middle. What does Radiant Destiny do?
This is 2 and a white. It's a rare enchantment. It has Ascend, so if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. As long as you have the city's blessing, they also have vigilance. So here the payoff has little to do with Ascend because the +1/+1 is like 90% of the card and vigilance is like 10% of the card.
This is interesting. So this is an easy to cast and somewhat flexible. We call these anthem effects.
Yeah, after a Glorious Anthem, kind of the original Crusade being
you
the
call
original
them a crusade. Would you call it a crusade?
No, Glorious Anthem is key because it's only your side. Crusade was both sides of the battlefield.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is a Glorious Anthem. If you have a heavy tribal deck, where this falls apart is decks that are like medium tribal, which I think are a thing in this format. There's going to be decks that aren't super tribal, but this is really powerful when you are tribal. And, Vigilance is something. Like, you'll ascend more often than not when you have this card because, first of all, it's a permanent and your creatures get bigger, so they die less often.
Let's talk tribes, though. Are we really saying vampires?
Vampires
I know that dinosaurs is technically in white, but I mean,
vampires is certainly the most likely.
Yeah,
but I think you can end up wanting to play this with dinos as well. It's also possible that you end up in some kind of weird off-brand color combination, because if you have like 6 or 7 of a creature, like this might actually be okay.
Yeah, it might be. Like if you're pumping 2 of your creatures, it's
blue-white and have like a bunch of blue merfolk.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's going to be vampires, but it's really good with vampires. Like, even if this just said
the best with them.
all your vampires get +1/+1, I still would give this card a high rating because it's a very good build around, but it's even more flexible than that. So I think Radiant Destiny is a B+.
Yeah, I do too. This is a type of card that, especially if you pick up early, you can then draft around and really maximize on it. B+ for Radiant Destiny. Slaughter the Strong. We've been kind of crushing the weak for most of this set, but it looks like the Strong are going to have a bad day. 1 white for a sorcery at rare. It says each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all other creatures he or she controls.
So if they have a 5-power creature, they can't keep it, no matter what. And if they have like a 3/3 and a 2/2, they get to keep the 3/3 but lose the 2/2. Also, it is symmetrical. So, I mean, it's coming, so you can play around it, but you might lose some creatures to it too.
I see. What a weird card.
So far, I have not been impressed by this card.
This is also symmetrical, like you said. So how does that...
So
how do you bust this?
What you're trying to do is like set it up so that maybe you have like a 2/2 and a 2/3, and they have like a 3/3, and then they just play a 4/4, then you pass, and they maybe hit you with one of them, play another creature, then you play this and kill 2 of their creatures.
I see. Okay.
But in my experience, because I've actually seen this card played, it's just not that good.
Yeah, this seems very, very finicky.
We
talk about setup cost. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
But I think that a lot of times it's not going to be playable till turn 6 or 7 to have any meaningful effect. It can still hit your side of the board. If this was just your opponent, this card would be much, much better. But
right.
Yeah, as is, like you said, there's a strong setup cost. They also might respond with pump spells on your creature. I suppose you could pump their creatures if you wanted. And
it's just a mess.
It is the sort of thing, if your opponent sees it, they can also play around it. Like if they see it in game 1, it's not that hard to play around. So I think Slaughter the Strong, it feels like a sideboard card. It actually feels like a card that, because if you have this card in your hand against Merfolk, it's just going to be a joke.
It's bad, yeah.
So I think Slaughter the Strong, I think it's like a sideboard B, because against decks that have consistent like 3+ power creatures, you can force them to keep one of their 3 creatures. That's great. Yeah. But when you're making them kill a 2/2 and a 1/1 token and keep, 2 2/2s, like that, it does not feel like a great card.
Right. And also the setup is interesting. And plus, I don't love that you almost kind of want to be behind when you cast it. That's a strange dynamic.
Well, that's true of most Wraths and Sweepers, and Wraths are good. But this one is too conditional because it's very easy for you to cast this and your opponent still have a decent squad out.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so sideboard B for Slaughter the Strong. You'll probably know when you want it. Sphinx's Decree is next. It's 1 and a white for a sorcery at rare. It says each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn. Huh?
Draw a card?
No, it doesn't say that. I'm looking for it. It just has flavor text. This is just a brick.
This card's an F. You're never going to put this card in your deck.
Yeah, don't do that. Maybe some constructed stuff or something, but not for us. Temple Altasaur is next. It's 4 and a white for a 3/4 dinosaur at rare. Kind of tame numbers for a rare. Let's see what it does. If a source would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent all but one of that damage.
So this makes your other dinos really hard to kill because like they would need 1 creature for every point of toughness to kill one of those dinosaurs in combat.
Oh yeah, it's impossible.
And obviously they still get the enrage bonus, so it is very good. On the other hand, it's a 5-mana 3/4, and if they cast Vanquish the Weak or Impale on it, you got nothing out of it.
Ugh.
It also doesn't protect itself. So
no, it's other.
If you end up in a combat, like imagine they sure strike the creature that is combating with this, and then the rest of your dinosaurs get wiped. So
The card seems fine to me. I mean,
No, it is a
there's
fine
no
card.
downside to it, right? But it's just not like a bomb.
Yeah, I think I think Temple Altasaur is going to end up being like a C+. Like a 5-drop that makes your other big creatures good is just not super valuable.
Yeah, I'll go B- on it because it does seem very annoying if you don't have the answer.
That's true.
I also like 3/4s. So C+, B- for Temple Altasaur. Trapjaw Tyrant is next. This is the Mythic Rare for white. It is 3 white for a dinosaur at Mythic. It's a 5/5. So that's vanilla test thumbs up. That's a nice one. 5/5 for 5. It's also got Enrage. Whenever it's dealt damage, exile target creature an opponent controls until Trapjaw Tyrant leaves the battlefield. What the? It just starts Oblivion ringing things?
It's until it leaves the battlefield. So if you like trade with this in combat, you don't. It's just a 5/5, but it's also a 5-mana 5/5.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think Trapjaw Tyrant is just a solid A. It is an efficient creature that sometimes will exile multiple of their creatures. If they chump block it, it gets to eat something. If you can trigger the Enrage yourself. If they have to use burn spells pre-combat to like get it out of the way, sometimes like they use two burn spells, you get to exile one of their creatures and they can't attack with it that turn even though it comes back. So
if they chump block, they lose the thing that chump blocked plus another thing, right?
yeah, Trapjaw Tyrant is just a very good card. So
Yeah, that
I think
seems
it's
like
an A on Trapjaw Tyrant.
I agree. Yeah, great card. Zitalpa Primal Dawn is the elder dinosaur. There seems to be a cycle of these. Not cheap. 8 mana, 6 white for a legendary elder dinosaur. This is a rare. These are not mythic rare, which is
Kinda weird,
feels a
but
little weird. Yeah. So this thing is a 4/8 for 8 mana, which is weird. But check this out. It has flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible.
So all it's missing is lifelink from and maybe haste from the royal family.
Yeah, so,
But the indestructible helps.
obviously, on the battlefield, the card's absurd.
Yeah, and because it's indestructible, they can't just like impale or contract kill and get rid of it.
No.
It does still fold to Water Knot and Luminous Bonds.
it does.
Pious Interdiction cards like enchantments that remove from combat. But
Which is a disaster, to be fair. I mean, you put 8 mana into this thing.
It does hit for 8 a turn, and it has Vigilance, so it blocks as well. I think that there are decks that will play this card, especially since you have Stampede, a Knight of the Stampede, the 4 mana, 4 mana, 2/4 that makes all your dinos 2 cheaper. Like Dinos actually has real ramp now. Thunderherd Migration as well. Like they have cards that can get you to this mana cost.
Yeah.
So this almost seems like a build around B, because in your 17 land vampire deck, you can't just put this card in and expect to cast it in a reasonable time frame.
No, but once this thing hits the board, they probably have no attacks against you, and it ends the game in a turn or two.
Yeah, if they don't have one of the cards that can interact with it.
Right.
So what I think you're going to want to do is look at Zitalpa. I would not first pick it under most circumstances, but if you're like green-white dinos, like this is a good open, or if you have like some green dino cards and you see a 4th pick Zitalpa, it actually seems like it's plausible to move in and try to cast this, turn 6 or 7.
Okay. So build around B for Zitalpa. White was pretty good, some solid stuff, but nothing really mind-blowing. We're still working our way up to that.
We'll get there.
Let's go to blue now.
It's got Admiral's Order.
Yeah.
It's 1 blue, instant at rare. Counter target spell, and if it has raid, if you attack with a creature, you can pay blue instead of paying its cost.
Just blue?
So this is essentially a cancel, except if they have a combat trick or an end of turn spell, you can pay 1 mana to counter it. Honestly, this plays just like a cancel. So,
yeah, wait a minute. I was going to say, like, what am I doing in my second main phase that I want? It's good at countering other counters, which isn't.
It's really good against cards like Divine Verdict. Destroy an attacking or blocking creature. You attack,
That's true.
And they play that because they couldn't have played it earlier, and you pay 1 mana. But it's like a C. I mean, I think it's playable.
It feels like a cancel.
And sometimes
with
it'll be
upside.
a little bit better.
All right, C for Admiral's Order. What about Crafty Cut Purse?
3 and a blue for a 2/2 human pirate at rare. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under an opponent's control this turn is created under your control instead.
There was an old blue card that did this. It was like 3 blue or something. I can't remember.
There was a card. There was a couple cards that when your opponent made a creature, it to stole the creature.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Collect the specimens or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and,
this is only for tokens, though. Huh?
So the joke is treasure, right? That's what the cut purse does. It steals their treasure. But this actually does steal merfolk or vampire tokens or dinosaur tokens. It steals any kind of token. So
it still doesn't seem that like I almost want to sideboard this because I would not be happy with 4 mana for a 2/2 with flash. Those stats just aren't up to
straight up unplayable unless you're stealing cards, which means you can't just main deck it and hope for the best because not every deck makes tokens, and it's expensive enough that if you don't know whether their deck makes tokens, you leave them in up, they just play a normal card, you're just going to be really behind. Yeah. So Crafty Cut Purse is a sideboard card. I think it's a sideboard B because it's such a blowout. If you play this in response to most any kind of creature token creation, you're going to get a huge edge.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes just a really great one. Like sometimes you're going to just counter their spell and get it. All right, so sideboard B for Crafty Cut Purse. Induced Amnesia. What does this one do?
This is 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment at rare. When it enters the battlefield, target player exiles all cards from his or her hand face down, then draws that many cards. And when Induced Amnesia is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. This is an F. You're down a card to reshuffle your cards, essentially, or to redraw your cards. And unless you can blow this up somehow, you're not getting those cards back.
Yeah.
And again, the critical part is you're down a card. You had 4 cards in your hand, you cast this, you draw 3. You basically discarded your whole hand to draw 3 cards and paid 3 mana for the privilege.
Ugh, no.
So don't play Induced Amnesia. Just forget about the card entirely.
Give it an F. All right. Hopefully they'll remember that it got an F. Kamena's Awakening is 2 blue for an enchantment. It's got Ascend. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. If you have the City's Blessing, instead only you draw a card. Well, there's a payoff for Ascend.
This is an actual good payoff. You know, a lot of the Ascend cards have somewhat minor payoffs. But so, we were a little bit about
your creature or whatever.
When you're getting those. It's interesting because when you don't have Ascend, this card is horrible. You paid 4 mana for a symmetrical effect. And one that especially punishes you for paying 4 mana and not adding to the board.
No, it's really bad.
But if you cast this and have Ascend, it's quite powerful. I think Kumena's Awakening is a good card, but I think it needs the right deck. I think you either want a deck that's good at getting Ascend, so maybe Merfolk that has a lot of Jungleborn Pioneers, 3 mana, 2/2, make a 1/1, that kind of card. Mm-hmm. Or you want a controllish, like blue-black deck maybe with some removal and some good blockers that tries to play this on like turn 7 or 8 as the finishing card.
Yeah, this does seem like a finisher, by the way, now that you mention that.
So it's not a card I would slam early, but I think it can be I think this is like a build around B. This is another card that I'm getting kind of excited. The couple build arounds is good.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think this is a card like I had it in a sealed deck, granted, and it was really good. But sealed is different from draft, so
sure.
It is worse in draft. But I think build around B, if you can pair Kumena's Awakening with ways to enable it, either drag out the game or just get a bunch of tokens, this could do some work. It's
certainly going to take over in the late game. Build around B for Kumena's Awakening. Next card is called Nezahal Primal Tide. 5 blue for a legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. So here's the blue version. 7/7 that can't be countered. Makes it so that you have no maximum hand size, which rarely matters. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. And you can discard 3 cards to exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Wow, there's a lot going on with this thing. So let's just break it down. 7 mana, 7/7, nothing that affects combat.
Yeah, that's worse than a Colossal Dreadmaw. 6 mana, 6/6 is better than 7 mana, 7/7.
Right. Can't be countered. We're not putting big points on that, but okay, sure. You have no maximum hand size.
Wildly irrelevant.
Yeah. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card.
That's good.
That's a thing, right?
It means if they remove this or interact with it, you get to draw a card, and ties into the next ability, the last one, which is discard 3 cards, exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This isn't a huge ability because by the time you cast a 7-drop, you often will not have 3 cards in your hand. But if you cast this with 2 cards, then you play a removal spell, you draw up to 3, and then you ditch all 3, and you get this back.
Mm-hmm.
So
and just give you that inevitability with Nezahal.
I think this card is fine.
I do too.
I don't think it's great, and it's a little awkward that blue is not a dinosaur color, so you're not really getting any. Like, it's going to be hard to end up in like blue-green dinosaurs and have ramp.
Right.
But I do think
I kind of want to. I mean, I'm looking at Kumena's Awakening and now Nezahal Primal Tide.
Well, I do think that this could be like, again, another finisher for a blue-based control deck, and works well with like Prosperous Pirates, right? You play that on 5, play this on 6, you probably have 3 cards to discard. So I think Nezahal gets like a B-.
Yeah, I think so too. A reasonable finisher, but perhaps not like an unbelievable bomb. Next card is called Release to the Wind. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. It's rare. It says exile target non-land permanent for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owner may cast it without paying its mana cost.
So this is an interesting one.
What a cool card.
It functions a lot like a blink. Cards like Momentary Blink, that exile and then bring the card back. But one key note is that if you exile a creature, you can only recast the creature on the main phase. Like that's when you can cast creatures. It doesn't say you can cast it whenever you want. So you can use this to remove a blocker to Alpha Strike for lethal.
Yes.
Also, if you use it on your own creature in response to removal, you don't get to then block with that creature if they played it on their turn, for example. What it does do is it re-triggers enter the battlefield abilities because you're recasting the card. And it also gives you a way to kill tokens, deal with auras, or any kind of removal on your card. You add all that together, I actually don't think it's still good enough, but it's an interesting card.
Yeah, at 3 mana, it does feel still a little bit expensive. It's just a nice tempo play, right? I mean, like you said, is there a huge difference?
Define tempo in this case. I mean, if they play a 3 mana removal spell and use this, you didn't end up ahead. Well,
no, what's the big difference between Release the Wind and, any bounce spell? Like anything that says bounce.
They don't have to pay the mana for it.
In which case?
When you use Release the Wind. If you bounce, they're permanent.
Well, they can just... I see what you're saying. They just don't have to pay. So it's just worse than those in many ways.
It's a much worse way to remove a blocker.
What's the upside of having it be exiled?
The upside for this case is that when you target your own thing, you don't have to pay. That's the kind of like the joke. See. So I think the card is bad.
I agree with you. That's not good enough.
It's a sideboard C, and you'll board it in if they have a bunch of removal or more importantly auras, because then you can cast this even if you draw it many turns after the removal spell. But it's not a card I'll main deck in. The only reason I really like it is because we got to talk about tempo. So and the definition thereof. No, but really is bad.
Sideboard C.
It's like a sideboard C, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Seafloor Oracle is next. It's 2 blue for a 2/3 Merfolk wizard. It's rare. Whenever a Merfolk you control deals combat damage to a player, boom, draw a card.
Now, this is what I call a tribal payoff. When you play this after playing, a Merfolk on turn 2 and turn 3, you often just elicit a concession.
Yes.
And it works especially well with the 1/1 unblockable Merfolk for 1, which is highly playable. This time we actually figured it out. Slitherblade we were pretty low on.
I still am, by the way. I'm much higher.
I think Seafloor Oracle is very good. Merfolk decks want this card.
Definitely.
So, I think this card's a B.
Me too.
It's not really a builder on because Tribes is kind of like the whole conceit of the set. So this is just a good blue card to start with, and a lot of the blue decks will want it. It's just very threatening, and it makes them walk into all your tricks, makes your bounce spells, very, very effective. So Seafloor Oracle gets a B.
Yeah, you'll notice that when you play it. The game will warp around Seafloor Oracle. Next is Time Stream Navigator. This is the Mythic Rare for blue. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human pirate wizard. It's got Ascend, and it has an activated ability. So we've got a 1/1 for 2 mana. You can pay 2 blue, tap it, and put Time Stream Navigator on the bottom of its owner's library to take an extra turn after this one. But you can only activate the ability if you have the City's Blessing. Otherwise, you're sitting there with a 1/1 until you have Ascend.
It's also not even that much of a payoff because in order for take an extra turn to be good, it means you have to be doing something productive on your turns, which often means you're either in a position to be attacking and winning the game, or you're racing, in which case it's good, or you're behind and not doing anything, in which case it's just cantrips.
Yeah,
technically, if you get down to no cards in your deck, you can start going infinite off this.
Wow. Okay.
So you activate it, put it on the bottom. Next turn you draw it, play it, and then you do have to wait an additional turn, and then you every other turn I guess you get to take an extra turn.
Yeah.
So
it seems actually kind of bad.
What you actually need to do is you play this, you wait, and then on your upkeep you sack it or you use it, draw it, play it, and then on the next turns you can keep doing that on your upkeep. So you kind of have to stagger it a little bit. In any case, Time Stream Navigator I think is like, it feels like a D. It doesn't feel like a card you're really going to be all that excited about.
I really want to be excited, and I want to try to break it, but it just seems very, very slow. Very ineffective. It doesn't do anything until you can actually activate it, and there's a lot of games where you can't. So I would give it a D.
That leads us to Warkite Marauder.
Yep.
It's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 flying, human pirate at rare. And when it attacks, target creature defending player controls loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 0/1 until end of turn. This card's sweet. It's
2/1
2-mana 2/1 flyer
Boom.
that nukes one of their creatures on terms of blocking. So it can drop one of their flyers, right? It loses all abilities, so just gets it out of the way. Or if they have no flyers, it can just nuke whatever their biggest ground creature is and maybe let your other creatures attack successfully. So it's a very good little aggressive card. I think Warkite Marauder gets like a B+.
Me too. I think it would be, close to B, but I give it B+ because of that ability. There's just nothing bad to say, right? When they give us reasonable, efficient bodies with upside, I'm in. That's just the kind of card you want as many of you can as you can get. So B+ for Warkite Marauder. And that moves us over into black, where our first card is called Champion of Dusk. It's 3 black for a 4/4 Vampire Knight at rare. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. And as I mentioned, Champion of Dusk is a vampire.
Champion of Dusk is excellent. Vampires is the tribe that most frequently has a lot of life when it's actually not doing well in the game. Like, Vampires is the kind of deck that can be losing while at 24 because it had a bunch of life linkers and then all of a sudden the opponent has some evasive creatures and the board locked up. Champion does a great job then. It's just great by itself. If 5 mana 4/4 draw card lose one is a card we would always play.
I've already actually had a chance to play this in a deck. It was a green-black deck of all things, and I only had 2 vampires total, and I was quite happy with Champion of Dusk.
Still just a good card. And if you draw 2 or 3 cards, you're just going to win the game almost every time, unless you're really far behind, because this is also a 4/4, so you're not even going behind on board when you play this. You're doing quite well. So
You're actually adding something quite beefy to the board.
I think Champion of Dusk gets an A-. I don't think it's the best card ever, and if you're behind and getting beaten down, you might not even be able to play it. It could be a little bit of a liability, but Champion of Dusk really ticks all the boxes.
I do. I like it. I guess if you're all in on vampires, I could see that being a downside where there's times where you just can't cast it, but you'll take it. A- for Champion of Dusk. Next one's a cute card called Dead Man's Chest, though I think it's bad. It's 1 and a black for an aura at rare. It enchants creatures only that your opponents control. You can't put it on your own creature. When the enchanted creature dies, you exile cards equal to its power from the top of its owner's library. That's you being the controller of Dead Man's Chest, so us, may cast non-land cards from among them for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast those spells.
Essentially, this is 2 mana, draw cards, draw 2 or 3 cards if you put it on like a 4/4 or a 5/5.
Yep.
But you have to be able to kill the creature.
Yep.
And if you put on a smaller creature, you're hitting maybe 1-2 cards. You also still have to cast those cards.
You still have to pay. Yeah, the lands don't count. So
Dead Man's Chest is
way too high setup cost. Yeah, it does nothing in between.
It's vulnerable to so many cards. The payoff is just not here. The setup cost is indeed too large. So an F for Dead Man's Chest.
Poor Dead Man. It's a cool card, but oftentimes they aren't that good. Direfleet Poisoner is next. Does this have poison? It's 1 and a black for a 2/2 human pirate at rare. It's got flash. Oh, I get it. It has death touch. All right, so not poison. When it enters a battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 and gains death touch until end of turn.
Got a little snake launcher on her arm there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's funny.
It feels like an homage to Ambush Viper.
Yeah, this is funny because it reminds me of the Warkite Marauder that we just mentioned, where it's just like a good card with a ton of upside.
These
it's
are
not
both
a bomb, but
like uncommon pluses, except they have enough abilities total to be rare. And Direfleet Poisoner is excellent. She by herself, single-handedly, 1 snake launcher at a time, makes it so if your opponent's attacking you with an odd attack where they send 1 creature but not another one, and that creature's a pirate, you got to think of this card. Like this is what they might have when they attack a 2/2 into your Colossal Dreadmaw.
Exactly.
It's such a beating when you use this card.
Oh God.
Like if you attack a 2/2 into their 2/2 and then have this, you're just up a card and that card happens to be a 2/2 death touch. Mm-hmm. And even if they never bite, they never run into your bite on offense, if you just play this on defense and block their 5/5, you also just have a 2 mana removal spell. 2 mana, kill target attacking creature without flying is a great card.
Yeah. This card is awesome. I like your description of it, by the way. It's like if you took an uncommon, but you stacked on like 2 or 3 different uncommon level abilities onto one card, and it's like, hey, we made a rare.
So I actually think Direfleet Poisoner ends up getting just about to A-.
Yeah, I'm going to go, I was thinking B+.
Well, it does the combo of being a 2-for-1 on offense some of the time and being a very good defensive card. So good when you're attacking, good when you're behind.
Yeah, you're right.
Just efficient at any point in the curve. Like
it's also a relevant tribe. Yeah, no, you're right.
Did I also mention it as a snake launcher on the arm?
Yes, which is that is enough to bump it from B+ to A-. So I for efficiency reasons and snake launcher reasons, Direfleet Poisoner gets an A-. What a great card. This next one is called Mastermind's Acquisition. They're trying to up the ante on these clunky tutors. So it's 2 black for a sorcery. It says choose one. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shuffle your library, which is an effect that newer players, less experienced players are always very drawn to, although it ends up usually being incorrect to play. And then, or you can choose a card from outside the game and put it into your hand. Now, for the purposes of how we play in Limited, that means from your sideboard.
This card, I believe, is not a strict F because there are some matchups where a 4-mana tutor will get you the card you want. But, they're slow enough and there's a game-breaking enough card. But it's like a sideboard D. It's not a card you really should put in your main deck. Because in order to spend, to be worth spending 4 mana to get just one card, you're not up cards at all. The card you get has to be so insane and make up for the fact that you spent 4 mana and didn't do anything. The format needs to slow down a lot more before that becomes a low cost. It is not a low cost.
Yeah, it's an extremely high cost. So D-?
I like sideboard D. You shouldn't main deck it. Yeah. I don't know. It's some combination of low grades that say if you have a card your opponent absolutely can't beat and the matchup is slow, maybe it's okay.
Yes, but even that is exactly when I would play it.
I'm never going to yell at you for not playing this card.
Yeah, which is a rarity anyway.
I will yell at you for not playing the next card, though. This is Tetsimok, the Primal Death. 4 black for a 6/6 legendary Elder Dinosaur at rare, not mythic, mind you, which is...
I can't believe that this is a rare, by the way.
It is a 6/6 Death Touch for 6. So a Colossal Dreadmaw with Death Touch. That's good. You play that most of the time.
Colossal Dreadmaw has Trample, just FYI.
Sure. With Death Touch instead of Trample.
There you go.
But here's the kicker. You can pay a black and reveal Tetsimok from your hand to put a prey counter on target creature. You can activate this ability only during your turn. But there's no limit on how many times you can activate it.
Right.
So
also, you can do it any time you want on your turn, which is kind of weird. But anyway, go ahead.
So for 1 mana, you can mark one of their creatures. When you cast Tetsimok, when Tetsimok enters the battlefield, destroy each creature your opponent controls with a prey counter on it. So here's what happens. Because I've seen this card a bunch of times now.
I had it in the pre-release, by the way.
Like, you're living your life. You play a 2-mana 2/2. They maybe do the same. Next one you play like a 3-drop. They go Tetsimok, mark your 3-drop, play a 2-drop. And then you're in a position, and you're just like, well, if I play more creatures, they're going to start marking your creatures with Tetsimok. Then on turn 6, I'm going to lose all my creatures. But if I wait because it's a sweeper and I don't want to play into a sweeper, my opponent's just going to keep playing creatures and I'll start losing, so I'll have to play creatures. There's no real way out of it. You just have to hope they don't hit land number 6 or side in counterspells. It's very, very bad against counterspells because you're just sitting there showing your opponent you've got a 6-mana, bomb rare that
and
you're
like,
okay, I'll leave up some mana. But this is my pick for best card in the set. I think that when you're behind, the card can get you out of it. If you draw it and have exactly 6 mana, maybe you have to just cast it. But sometimes you can just spend a turn marking all their creatures, then they lose all their creatures. Also in the late game, if you have 8 or 9 mana, you just reveal this twice and then play this.
It's so stupid. I had this. Yeah. This is one of the best limited cards I've ever played with, Luis. Seriously, I think we're gonna have this in the pantheon of top 10 limited cards ever. It's as good as Titans were. It's insane.
And your opponent knows it's coming and can't do anything about it, which does not engender feelings of hope.
No, the funny thing is that that's the point. Right? It has this Jaws feel where it's like, it's coming, he's coming for you. And it's really kind of, it elicits a reaction just by showing the card like, oh no, right? Which is exactly what they wanted when they designed it. But holy crap, they can't do anything about it and they just lose their board. This card is unreal. I only got to cast it twice, but I won those games super easily. It was just what?
MJ, Michael Jacob, I was watching his stream and he actually, I think, had a pretty cool and natural feeling way to design this card, which was it fights all the creatures that have prey counters.
Oh, see, that would be cool. I
That would
was
be cool.
thinking,
It has Death Touch, so it would still kill them all, but at least it would die if you went too overboard.
yes,
Well-
that's great. I like that. I also, I was thinking that honestly, like, I believe that this card, like, maybe it'll see a bunch of standard play and it'll be like Pack Rat was, but as a limited card, I'm just like, this should not be here. This card feels stupid. And the thing that
This
I
is
was
not going to
thinking,
make it a huge impact in standard, I don't believe.
I mean, I don't either. I didn't think Pack Rat would. And then it ended up, it took a year and a half and then it dominated. But my point being that there's a lot of knobs to turn on a card like this. For example, you could make it cost more, like not the creature, but you could say 2 and a black, reveal Tetsamok, etc. Right? You could say you can do this once per turn. Right. So it's like, dun, but like they can try to race it or whatever.
I can tell you the reason that doesn't work.
Okay.
You reveal Tetsamok, you put it back in your hand, and then you do it again. They're like, "Is that?" You're like, "No, it's a different Tetsamok." What are you?
Oh, of course. You're right. Of course, they can't do that.
Have someone go look at their hand.
It is
call a judge.
good. It is good to have a game designer on the show. But anyway, A plus. I think this is one of the best.
Tetsamok.
Yeah, best
If
limited
you open
cards
this
I've
card,
ever seen.
in pack one, you're obviously always going to take it. If you open it later, check how many cards of your second color you have. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, seriously, it's that good. Tetsamok A plus. Next is called Tom B. Robber, or Tomb Robber, if you will. I had this card in my deck, one of my draft decks, because I wanted to just try it out. It's weird. It's 2 and a black for a 1/1 menace human pirate. It has activated ability. You can pay a mana and discard a card to explore. It explores.
So I think this card is interesting. I haven't had a chance to play with it. It
Yeah.
feels like it is good in the late game, but a pretty bad turn 3 through 5 play.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I started pitching additional lands to it late in the game. And like, if you hit another land, it just goes right in your hand and you can just do it again.
It just chews through all your lands and
Yeah.
can increase the quality of your draw steps and become a little bit bigger. I think the card is good. I think you will tend to play it in your black decks, especially your pirate decks, but you're not going to pick it very highly. This feels like a C+ to me.
Me too. It really had a couple of interactions that were cool, and the rest felt not so cool. Twilight Prophet. This has to be one of the best artworks in the set. It's 2 black for a creature, vampire cleric at Mythic Rare, and it's a 2/4 with flying. So 4 mana, 2/4 flyer. It's got Ascend. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that card's converted mana cost. Bang.
See, this card is excellent. This is another Ascend payoff that's really good, which is like worth building towards, worth caring about. And it's also a 4 mana 2/4 flyer in a relevant tribe, and in fact, one of the better tribes. So
love it. I love this card.
Twilight Prophet is an A-.
Me too. And also, I think it's this to me is this is a really cool design. Tough card to kill. Gets you to Ascend. A 2/4 flyer is a great blocker. So Twilight Prophet A-, maybe even just an A. I think the card's just awesome.
Yeah, it actually might just be an A. I just looked at Champion of Dusk, and I would just take, if I saw both in the pack, I'd take Twilight Prophet and not really think much about it. So
yeah,
Twilight Prophet.
Let's go
just
A.
give it an A.
Let's do it. Last black card is a really interesting one. It's called Vona's Hunger. It's 2 and a black for an instant. It says each opponent sacrifices a creature. But it also has Ascend. It says if you've got the City's Blessing, instead each opponent sacrifices half of the creatures he or she controls rounded up.
So the effect of 2 and a black, each opponent sacrifices a creature is just not very good in limited. No. Especially in this format, there's a lot of tokens. 2 of the 4 tribes have easy access to tokens. And the Ascend part is very good. Like that's a great card. You'd pay 4 or even 5 mana for that ability a lot of the time. But this is only on, some percentage of the time. And I actually have run into a problem with this card. I had it in a black-white vampire deck. Mm-hmm. There's a common in each set that's white that makes it so the creature can't attack or block. So you're frequently going to have 1 or 2 of those in play if you're drafting black-white.
Sure.
This card is good in other black decks too, so that's not like a huge thing. But it is one I noticed, especially since vampires have tokens and get to Ascend a little easier than like blue-black pirates, for example. Mm-hmm. But all that being said, I think this card is like not a card I would put in an aggressive black deck unless I had a lot of token making. A good card for a more control-ish deck or a deck with a lot of tokens, which I think ends up being something like a C or C, no, probably like a C+.
Yeah, I got blown out by this card, but I felt like that was the best case scenario for it.
If you make them sacrifice 2 creatures, it is good.
Yeah, I had to sacrifice 3. It's rounded up, right? Yeah, rounded up.
If they have 3 creatures, they sack 2. If they have 5, they sack 3.
Yeah, that's what happened. I had 5. So, yeah, it does have a high upside. But, man, if you don't get the City's Blessing, it's a mediocre card.
This almost makes me feel like a build around like B+.
Yeah, it kind of does.
It's
like
so good when you
stuff.
cast it.
Yeah.
And so mediocre when you don't.
Yeah, when you have City's Blessing. Yeah, I agree. Okay, build around B+ for Vona's Hunger. Let's move on to red. The first card is called Blood Sun. It's 2 and a red for an enchantment. When Blood Sun enters the battlefield, draw a card. All lands lose all abilities except mana abilities.
So Blood Sun is not a card I'm ever going to put in my main deck, but note that all the flip cards turn into lands, and this strips the abilities off those lands.
You mean all the double-face transform cards?
Yeah, the flip cards.
Flip cards are from Kamigawa, my friend.
Oh, come on.
You're gonna have to step up your game.
This is mighty pedantic of you. In any case, Blood Sun is like a sideboard D. It's just not even that good when you sideboard it because you're spending 3 mana, not affecting the board. Granted, it replaces itself. Also, be sure to take out Evolving Wilds if you board in Blood Sun. That's not a combo.
You can't go search up anything? Okay, fair enough. Brass's Bounty is next. It's 6 and a red for a sorcery at rare. For each land you control, create a colorless treasure. You get a treasure.
For each land. Yeah, this is not a good card. It's 7 mana. You instantly ascend. You double your mana. You paid 7 mana for a bunch of treasures. I don't really know what it's doing. I'm going to give Brass's Bounty an F.
It's just an F, yeah. Unless you have some way to...
You have something weird going on. Revel in Riches, I guess, with this is an auto win.
That's true. You could combo off. There you go. You found it. 2 rares. Direfleet Daredevil is next. It's 1 and a red for a 2/1 human pirate at rare. It's a first striker. So 2/1 first strike, thumbs up. When it enters the battlefield, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You may cast that card this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. If you do cast it, you exile it instead of putting it into a graveyard. This, of course, reminds people of Snapcaster Mage, but you're doing it from your opponent's graveyard, and it doesn't have flash. Kind of cool.
Yeah, this is a great card because it's early in the game, 2 mana, 2/1 first striking pirate. You just cast it on turn 2 and feel pretty good. Later in the game, especially against like a black deck, you're going to play this and play a removal spell, making this a build your own Chupacabra. So
yeah,
I think Direfleet Daredevil gets a B.
Me too. It's like a B or a B+. I think it's a B+. I'm going to give Direfleet...
Right, I'll go B+ on Direfleet Daredevil.
Yeah, because just both sides are so good, right? It's just like good, but with upside. Oh man, this next card's insane too. It's called Itali Primal Storm. 4 red for a 6/6 legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. So here's the red Elder Dinosaur. Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. So both players flip their card. Then you may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost.
So this does let you cast it right away. Because it
and you kind of have
the resolution
to, right?
of the ability. And you either cast it then or you forever hold your peace. So still,
you meant that for like creatures, right? Like
for sorceries, creatures, whatever.
Yeah.
So 6 mana, 6/6. Again, that's baseline playable. I've found that to be okay, especially in dinosaurs.
Sure.
And then when it attacks, on average, you're going to get more than one card. Obviously you'll flip land card a lot of the time, but card a lot of the time as well. And that's just great. If you attack and draw, even if this is attack, draw card, and play the card for free, note that you don't have to pay the mana. I mean, this card is fantastic. So I think Itali Primal Storm gets an A-.
Yeah, I do too. I played this. I had this card in my deck. I had this and Tetsamok, so I was kind of rocking and rolling with the legendary Elder Dinosaurs, but it played exactly like that. The fact that it has no special abilities, but still has 6 toughness and 6 power, it is difficult to kill in combat, especially in conjunction with any removal or whatever. And you're so incentivized.
That's what I call a success story for putting the Elder Dinosaurs at rare, actually, because there are advantages to making cards that even inexperienced limited players can win with. So I think that is heartening.
All right. So A- for Itali Primal Storm. Form of the Dinosaur. Now, this is a weird card. This is kind of a callback, right, to Form of the Dragon or something.
This
I'm
is
not
one
really
of the
familiar
most
with any of these.
controversial cards from my written reviews, which came out and people discussed. This is 4 red for a rare enchantment. Mm-hmm. When Form of the Dinosaur enters the battlefield, your life total becomes 15. Beginning of your upkeep, Form of the Dinosaur deals 15 damage to a creature an opponent controls, and that creature deals damage equal to its power to you. So you turn into a dinosaur and you fight something at the beginning of each of your upkeep.
You're just lashing out at something every upkeep. Okay.
I think this card's quite good. I've seen a lot of people say that they think it's really bad, but I don't believe that, because
really
you can die to this card, but you're eating one of their creatures every turn. It deals 15 damage.
But you're taking. That you're taking damage too, right?
Yeah, but you have other creatures and you can start pressuring them.
Okay, I see. So your idea is you play it, you say go, then in your upkeep, you go from 15 to 11, kill their 4/4, and then start attacking them.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I think that there are times when you'll play this and you'll lose. I mean, I'm not saying otherwise. But first of all, your life total becoming 15 means you can aggressively, if you know you're going to play this, you can set up a race where they put you down to like 3 and you've gotten some damage. And then you play this, go up to 15.
That's interesting.
And then next turn, eat their biggest creature, maybe attack, maybe not. Next turn, eat their second biggest creature or whatever they have left, and then start attacking them, especially backed with other removal or combat tricks. Because you can also start targeting their small creatures if you need to. And again, combat tricks and removal mean that maybe you can wipe their board and end up where this doesn't hurt you. That
is interesting. No, when you put it that way, because initial reading does read this as like very risky, right? But
the thing is, some of the games where this will lose you the game are games you weren't going to win because they have so many creatures out that eating one a turn is not going to get you out of it, even though you start at 15 life in that case. How
would you compare Form of the Dinosaur to, to a whatever, like the 6/6
removal spell?
No, like a 6/6 Trampler.
I think it's better.
Okay.
But I don't know. This is a really hard card to evaluate.
Very hard. This is mind-bogglingly hard.
I am on the side of this being better rather than it being worse. And I think if people who are calling this straight up unplayable are underestimating what it can do.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you can play into setting up that big life gain hit where you could gain 10 life and then start killing their creatures. If you were racing, I think you're going to win that game.
Yeah, so I think...
Okay. So where do you grade it? I have no... does this go into any deck that can cast it?
I think so, unless you're a deck that's strolling out. It is really bad with the pacifism type effects that leave a creature sitting in play. So maybe don't do that combo.
Oh, because you still have to fight it?
You still eventually have to fight it, yes.
Oh, that's annoying, yeah.
Because obviously it's not optional here. That's like kind of the whole joke.
Right.
But overall, I think this card is going to end up being closer to a B than a C, but I really do want to see how it plays out.
I do too. What a weird and interesting card. So we'll keep our eye on Form of the Dinosaur. Next one. Oh, look, another bomb rare. Rekindling Phoenix is 2 red for a 4/3 flying Phoenix. This is a mythic. I'm in, by the way. 4/3 flyer for 4. Yep.
Yeah, good deal.
And then it's got kind of a cool ability. When it dies, you get an 0/1 red elemental creature token with this ability on it that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature and return target card named Rekindling Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste until end of turn. So basically what you have to do is you have to kill Rekindling Phoenix, and then you have to kill the token, and then it'll actually stay in the graveyard. So it's just kind of like a built-in 2-for-1.
Waternaut or Luminous Bonds on the Phoenix.
Yes.
But note, it comes back right away and with haste. Like if you kill it on your turn, it just comes back on their turn and attacks you. So
absolutely.
It really does nothing to kill this unless you can kill or exile or deal with the token.
I love this card.
Well, of course, it's probably the second best card in the set.
Okay. So I give it an A.
I think it's an A+.
You think it's that good, huh?
If you're behind and you play this, often your opponent's just going to be like, wow, I just can't attack into this.
Yeah, that's what
If you're ahead, they can't win. I mean, yes, it does die to Waternaut, Luminous Bonds, Pious Interdiction, an exile ability. Like, it's not like this will always win you the game automatically. But it's only 4 mana.
It's only 4 mana. Yeah, you're right.
There's just no way to lose out on this. So I think Rekindling Phoenix is an A+.
Okay, I'm going to go A, but whatever. The card's just completely insane. Next one is called Silverclad Ferocidons. It's 5 red, so 7 mana for an 8/5 dinosaur. It's rare. It's got Enrage. When it's dealt damage, each opponent sacrifices a permanent.
This card is highly mediocre.
It's just too expensive, huh?
7 mana for an 8/5. Them sacking a permanent at this point in the game just means they sack a land. I think Silverclad Ferocidons, unless you really need high end in a dino deck with a lot of ramp, is pretty unplayable, which leaves it somewhere close to like
D-ish.
Like a D for Silverclad Ferocidons.
Yeah, that an Eldrazi, it is
Bronze-clad Ferocidons. Copper-clad Ferocidons. Now
wow,
good silver.
Plummeting. Tillinolli's Summoner is the last card. This is a really neat one, too. It's 1 and a red for a 1/1 human shaman, but it's got Ascend. So here's the deal. When it attacks, you can pay X and red. If you do, you get X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. And if you have the City's Blessing, you get to keep them. If you don't, they get exiled at the beginning of
or end of
combat.
End of combat?
Next end step.
Okay. Yeah, end step.
End step.
But of course, the joke is that if you attack with this and have,
Yes.
6 lands out, you already just automatically ascend if you sink all your mana into it.
Exactly. So you will often be able to do that. And this card's scary. Yes, it's easy to kill. It's a 1/1. But as the game progresses longer and longer, it's like, tick-tock.
Just assume it's going to die in combat. It's still just a spell that puts a bunch of tokens into play.
Yeah.
I think this card's good. I underrated it a little the first time I saw it, but I think it's going to end up being like a B-.
Yeah, I gave it a B. I've played against it, and if you're trying to sit back a little bit, it's scary. It will kill you. So Tillinolli Summoner B, B- in that range. Let's move on to green, where we've got Deep Root Elite. This is 1 and a green for a 1/1 Merfolk Warrior at rare. It says whenever another Merfolk enters a battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target Merfolk you control. Wow.
Card's really powerful. I've faced it multiple times now. And
how good is it?
it's insanely good. In a Merfolk deck, it's just a huge beating, especially since it works so well with Merfolk tokens.
Oh, God.
And it can pump itself up too.
Oh, my God.
It doesn't trigger off itself, but everything else works. So I think Deep Root Elite is an A-. I just think it's one of the most threatening cards they can play on turn 2. Granted, as a late game top deck, it's not great, but it's still not even dead. Every time they draw a Merfolk, it does something. So
yeah, it does. I like A- for Deep Root Elite. That is terrifying on turn 2.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, this next card is completely absurd too. I'll admit that I kind of wrote it off at first glance, and after having played with it, I'm like, nope, that card's just awesome too. It's called Galta Primal Hunger. Mana cost 12. It's 10 GG, so huge. This is the Elder Dinosaur, by the way. It's a 12/12 with trample. So an absolutely massive beater, and its mana cost is reduced. It costs X less, where X is the total power of creatures you control. And this one is one that's kind of, you got to kind of go, okay, well, unless you do some use cases, but when you do, you're like, oh wait, this card's just insane. If you can get it on the battlefield,
you're playing this
easy. On
turn 5 or 6.
If you can play it on 4.
Well, you have to get pretty lucky to play it on 4.
You really don't.
How are you playing this on 4 and not getting lucky?
So you play a 2/2 for 1 mana, which there are numerous.
2/2 for 1 mana.
Yes, I'm starting off with the 1-drop.
Okay.
Then you play a 2/2.
The scenario is already nonsense.
Why?
How many 2/2s for 1 are there?
I don't know. There's like 4 or 5.
They're all uncommon, unless you're talking about the one that gets +1/+0 when you attack the black pirate. And
okay.
Half of them aren't cards you put in a dinosaur deck.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. So let's just play a 1/1 then. Can I get, so a 1/1, a 2/2, and then let's say a 4-powered 3-drop, of which there's also multiples, right?
A 4-powered 3-drop?
Yes.
I'm not getting, like what?
The 4/2s. They're common.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. And then on turn 4, you're still short.
You're still short 1. If you let me have my 2/2, then you're turn 4 in it. If you don't, then you're going to turn 5 it.
Yeah.
With commons, by the way, these are not rares. I'm talking about a 2/2 for 2 on turn 2, a 4-powered 3-drop, of which, again, there are 2 at common in this block that are dinosaur cards. That's already 6 if you missed your 1-drop.
I think it is realistic to play this on turn 5. I do not think
Definitely.
turn 4 is I think that's an exaggeration.
Okay.
Like you have to lead with Kumina's Speaker or something like that. But
there's also the pirate that's a red 2/2 that you have to reveal. There's a lot of them.
So you have to have another pirate and a 3-mana 4/2 and a 2-mana 2/2. That's
just not that hard. These are commons and an uncommon. I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to happen every game. I'm just saying that turn 4, turn 5
you're probably not going to do it in the format.
Okay, fine. But whatever. My point is that you can
cast
this on...
We're also not even arguing about anything real because we're just going to play this on turn 5 and win the game.
Yeah, it's an A. I mean, Galta Primal Hunger is completely off the charts, right? Like,
I think it's an A-.
I have it
The
at
only
A.
reason I think that is because in games where things don't work out smoothly, this can backfire. Like in games where you don't curve out or you miss your 4th land drop or something like that.
Sure.
Or you play your like 4-mana, 4/4 and they kill it. All of a sudden, Galta's like wildly uncastable.
Yes, that's true.
That can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would tend to try to play a more creature heavy deck, in the 15 to 17 range of number of creatures to try to make sure that Galta can come down as early as I can. But the truth is that if you get Galta down anywhere in the 5, 6, or even turn 7 range, it's a completely board dominating card that's immune to some form of removal as well and ends the game very, very quickly because of trample.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be chump block. and it's going to win everything in combat. Like it dies to removal spells. Like I know that's not like a complete argument, but a lot of our other A's either replace themselves or are resilient, like the Phoenix.
True.
You know, I think the Galta is an A-. I think that what is kind of messed up about this card is when it's good, it's more unfair than almost any other card in the set, even Tetlamok, because you know, like under Marshall's like highly unrealistic situation of playing it on turn 4, my incredibly realistic situation of playing it on turn 5.
Sure.
Either way, it's just
you're just winning in either scenario you win the game. I have it at an A. A- is fine.
I'll give Galta, an A-, but we're just quibbling, much like we're quibbling over the turn you cast it.
Indeed. Jade Light.
Similarly, I'm correct.
Anyway. Jade Light Ranger. Oh, I mean, obviously your scenario is more likely. Like I'm not. I'm just saying that there are realistic, like non-rare scenarios where you could turn 4.
You're saying on average you play this turn 4, yeah?
No, of course not. That is ridiculous. You don't even play it on turn 5, I don't think, on average. But also, by the way, really scary if your opponent just stops blocking and you're like, wait, what? You didn't want to make that trade? It's like, oh no. Because this thing's just a rare. Like you're going to see it. Jade Light Ranger is next. It's 1 green for a 2/1 Merfolk Scout at rare. And when it enters the battlefield, it explores and then it explores yet again. Plays kind of weird. If you hit a non-land card, you could just put it back and just get the 2 counters, like if it's something that you want or if you want to make sure you get the counters.
Or even if you don't, yeah.
If you hit a land, well, then you just draw it or, whatever. But
I think Jade Light Ranger is an A- as well.
Oh, do you really?
It's a 3-mana, it's a Mole Drifter that can also be a 3-mana 4/3. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah, I'm trying to piece together that. I mean, it's not quite that, but I mean, it.
Sometimes you play this on turn 3, and if you hit a non-land, you just leave it on top, spike it again. Whether you want to keep it or not, it doesn't matter. It's a 3-mana 4/3, which is very good.
Which is huge.
And in the late game, you're either going to mill some lands off the top of your deck, or explore and find something good, or explore and bin 2 cards you don't want. Either way, your next draw step's probably going to be pretty good. So
yeah.
And it's
I played against it and the card felt busted. I was like, what the hell? Is this real?
It's really good. It's also good if you like bounce and replay it. It's also good because it has counters and some of the Merfolk cards care about that. So, I mean, any green deck would want this card. It's not a Merfolk card. So I think Jade Light Ranger is an A-. It's only 3 mana. You just can't lose out when you're spending.
All right, I think you convinced me. I was going to be in the B range, but again, having played against it, it was super impressive. I'm like, wow, that's insane. All right, so A- for Jade Light Ranger. We are just handing out A's like they're going out of style here, by the way. We've got
that's just what the set is. And,
it's just princely format, it seems.
Next up, we have another, I think, card that's pretty nice. It's a Path of Discovery. It's 3 and a green for an enchantment at rare. And it says, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it explores.
Interesting. So any creature.
Yeah. Works with tokens.
Oh, God. Really? Oh, my God.
It does. If the game lasts any reasonable period of time after you play this, you're going to win because it'll set you up with a steady stream of lands to play your spells, and it lets you explore, so you're milling bad spells and keeping good ones. And a bunch of your creatures also have +1/+1 counters. Like, imagine you play Path of Discovery, then play the Merfolk Pioneer, the 3-mana 2/2 that makes a 1/1.
Oh,
you either
wow.
Like you hit, let's say you hit a land on the first one. You probably stack it, so you explore the token first because you want the counter on the 2/2 more often.
Right.
You hit a land and then you hit a spell, and if it's a bad spell, you mill it. If it's a good one, you keep it. You end up with a 3/3 and a 1/1, and you drew a land.
And if you hit a non-land spell, you can just put it back and just get them both.
Right.
Like
if
they
you
both
want
get
to
a
in
counter
that
on
case.
them.
Wow. And even if you just play you basically have to play you do have to play probably 3 creatures after this to really feel like you got your money's worth. But they feed into each other because they make it more likely you will be able to play more creatures because you're manipulating the top of your deck.
Yeah,
so
clearing away lands.
I don't think this card's a bomb, but I think Path of Discovery is a B. Maybe a B+.
Okay. I'll go. I was going to go lower on that, but you have also talked me into this one. I like B or B- actually for Path of Discovery. It still has a steady cost of 4 mana, do nothing, and you do have to play creatures after to make it good, and sometimes that won't happen. But otherwise, I'm in. What about Polyraptor?
This is a 6 green for a 5/5 dinosaur Mythic. This is green's Mythic.
Mana? Okay.
Yeah, 8 mana. And it has Enrage. Whenever Polyraptor is dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor. I don't think this card's good.
No, man, that's cool, but no.
It's a cute combo with Forerunner of the Empire, the 1/3 that lets you put this on top of your deck. You play it, it pings for 1, makes another Polyraptor, which pings for 1, which makes another Polyraptor, which pings for 1, kills the Forerunner at this point, but you end up with a bunch of Polyraptors.
That's awesome. Oh man, that's insane.
But most of the time, you just have this sit in your hand. By the time you play it, they're like, okay, bounce it or impale it or whatever. So I think Polyraptor is like a D-. Like,
yeah, the problem is just that it's just a 5/5 for 8 mana, right? Yeah, you have to go off with
no
it.
Particular. Yeah, if you have a Forerunner Vampire, go for it. I probably will try that, but for the most part, I think Polyraptor's not good.
Yeah, I think you're right. Tender Shoot Dryad. Hey, look, another A. This one's 4 and a green for a 2/2, which might make you cringe, but listen to this. At the beginning of each upkeep, so that's yours and theirs, create a 1/1 Saproling token, and Saprolings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing, because Tender Shoot Dryad also has a send.
I think Tender Shoot Dryad might be an A+.
It's unbelievable
because
card to play
first of all, this gets you a send by itself very, very quickly.
Yes.
Even if you had nothing else, this is your 6th permanent. You tap 5 lands for it. On their upkeep, you made a 7th permanent. On your turn, you made an 8th. At this point, you just have a send. You just play anything.
Yes, with any other things, you've already got it.
It works right away. If you play this and then on their turn, you get a 1/1, then they kill it. Okay, you traded and got a 1/1. Not great for you. But if they don't kill it, you just get a 3/3 on each player's turn. Like, your opponent just loses the game in like 2 turns.
They do, yeah.
So I think Tender Shoot Dryad's an A+. I don't think I'd ever pass this, and it's easy to splash. Like, if I'm black-white Vamps, really, like, I have 5 good black cards, 5 good white cards, and I open this in pack 2. I'm just going to take it and try to pick up an Evolving Wilds or a Traveler's Amulet.
Yeah, the only good thing they did is made it 2 toughness, so it dies to the common -2/-2 removal spell. So at least you have like some hope. But
it's so hard to lose out on this, and when it works, you just win the game. And when it doesn't work, you still probably got a little value. So that's really not a lot to ask for.
Yeah,
so
I love that card. Tender Shoot Dryad, A+. Card's insane. Wayward Swordtooth. Oh man, I had this in my sealed pool, but I didn't get to play it because I wasn't in these colors. It's 2 and a green for a 5/5 dinosaur with Ascend. It allows you to play an additional land on each of your turns. That's just a static ability that it has, which of course works you up towards Ascend a little quicker. And it can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing. So it's a 5/5, but it just plays more like an enchantment until you get to
basically,
City's Blessing.
I think when things work out, this card's decent because it accelerated you and you get a 5/5, attacking at about the time which a 5/5 would normally be able to attack on turn 5 or 6. When things don't work out, when you miss a land drop with this thing in play, it's just so bad. It's really a straight up blank.
It's just a brick, yeah. And people tend to get a little too excited about the additional land on each of your turns.
Turn 3, play this. Play my 4th land. Next turn, play my 5th and 6th land. Play 2 things. I've got the City's Blessing. It's like
you ran out of cards, buddy.
What if you play this, play an additional land, next turn and you draw and you don't have any lands, or you play 1 land, then you're like pretty far away and this card's doing nothing for you.
And it's not doing anything.
Imagine you molt a 6, and you have this and 2 lands in your opening hand.
I love hearing you talk like this, buddy. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, like
this happens all the time in Limited,
So here's what the problem I have with Ascend in general is I think we were a little harsh on it during our common review because the format seemed like it was going to be fast and Ascend didn't seem like it was going to be that on. Having played with it, I think we both agree it's on a decent amount of the time. Mm-hmm. The problem is people are overestimating because they look at cards like Wayward Swordtooth and just assume Ascend is on very quickly when it's just not the case.
No.
And a lot of the Ascend bonuses on especially the commons and uncommons, which matter more, aren't huge.
Yeah.
Like you're getting +1/+1 on turn 6 or 7 or 8, which, that's just not game breaking.
No.
So yes, I think Ascend is good. I think your Ascend cards can be quite powerful. Don't look at Wayward Swordtooth and just think like on turn 5 I'll have 7 lands in play and I'll be attacking with this. Just like sometimes the game does not work out that way.
Yeah, removal can mess that up. Somebody trying to race can force you to block.
I don't like this card very much. I think if you have some Hunt the Weeks, maybe it gets a little better. If you have some tokens, it maybe gets a little better. But I think it's like a C-.
Yeah, I do too. I want to like it. It's a really cool card, but I think the setup cost is a little too high. Yeah. Last green card is called World Shaper. It's 3 and a green for a 3/3 Merfolk Shaman. It's rare. Whenever it attacks, you can mill yourself for 3. And when it dies, you put all land cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, it's not much more than a Hill Giant. Sometimes it'll perform a little more, but I think it's going to be like a C+.
Yeah, I had this in a deck in that green-black deck where I had 2 of the Creeper guy, and even then it was mediocre. You also have to be careful about decking yourself. I mean, obviously you have full control. It is a May ability, But it is 3 cards per turn. I just wonder what you're going to do with all those lands when it finally does die. I mean, I suppose if you get 2 lands on its first attack, it's probably pretty fine. But beyond that, it's pretty mediocre, I think. So yeah, C range for World Shaper, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. That means that we've got the gold cards and a few colorless cards, and then we're done. There's not that many rares. There's only about 60 in the set. So first gold card is called Ungroth the Flame Chained. It's a planeswalker for 3 black-red. So 4 loyalty on a 5-mana planeswalker. +1 ability, or plus ability is +1. Each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. That's pretty good. -3, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste. Until end of turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. If it has converted mana cost 3 or less, interesting. Angreth, of course, still alive at that point. And then ultimate is -8. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard.
Angreth's pretty good.
Steal a small creature and kill it? That's pretty good.
Yeah, medium protects himself because it can, like you said, the -3 can actually kill a creature. +1 to go to 5 loyalty and ping him for a card is pretty good because you can often get another card next turn. Maybe it absorbs a hit. Mm-hmm. I don't think this card's a bomb. I think I would take a lot of cards over it, especially since it's a gold card.
Yeah.
But I think Angreth is a B.
Okay. Yeah. This is not the abilities of an all-timer planeswalker, but it's a solid card. Yeah. Next is another mythic, by the way. It's called Azor the Lawbringer. Azor is 2 white, blue. So 6 mana and pretty tough to cast. But you get a 6/6 flying legendary Sphinx. And when Azor the Lawbringer enters the battlefield, each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn. So basically unlimited, that means, has a hard time killing Azor outside of enchantments. Whenever Azor attacks, you may pay, this is kind of funny, X white, blue. If you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, which of course is a throwback to Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, cast Sphinx's Decree and Sphinx's Revelation.
Indeed. So what are we doing here? I mean, this is a very tough card to cast, 2 white, blue.
I think of Azor, if it was just 2 CCDD, right? Like 2 colorless and 2 of 2 different colored mana symbols with all this text, it would generally be like probably an A-. Just because 6 mana, 6/6 flyer, that if it attacks, you essentially win the game.
Yes.
The problem I have mainly is that it's in white-blue, which I think is like the least, at least from my initial read of looking at all the tribes, it's one of the least supported formats.
Right. I mean, it has no actual tribe associated with it.
Right. That said, this card I think is still pretty good. My guess is it still ends up in this A- level. And if you open this, you should probably take it. There's a chance it's closer to a B+ just because blue-white might have a higher rate of misfiring than something like, blue-black or blue-green.
Right. I think we'll know more in 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever.
But I think that it can't be much better than A- because it's still a 6 mana 6/6 that can die to removal. Though it does stop sorceries on their opponent's next turn, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like if they have a contract killing or an impale, this gets off.
That's right. Now the instant
Escapes
part's
the law
less,
for a turn.
It's less relevant, right? Because
that doesn't really matter.
Upkeep or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it attacks, I imagine you'll win. You can pay 6 or 7 mana, draw 3, gain 3, or draw 4, gain 4, and that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah,
so
the game's going to be over.
But I think the floor on this is still like a B+. Like blue-white can't be that bad. It's just not.
Because this card's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I like A- for Azor.
I like A- for Azor. Yeah. I just think there's a little bit of risk on blue-white.
And we'll keep an eye on it because if blue-white ends up being bad, then it does get awkward if you open one of these. How far do you want to go with it? Next is called Elenda the Dusk Rose. This is 2 white-black for a 1/1 lifelink legendary creature vampire knight. And whenever another creature dies, that's any creature, by the way, put a 1/1 counter on Elenda the Dark Rose. And when she dies, you get X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is Elenda's power. So you're paying 4 mana for a 1/1 lifelinker that can get completely out of hand in conjunction with combat or removal or anything along those lines.
Also naturally dies into a 1/1.
What?
If they kill her right away, you still get a 1/1.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Interesting.
I think Elenda's very good.
Yeah.
Because when any sort of normal like game interaction happens, with this in play, your opponent's just going to feel like they're losing. You're gonna end up with a 3/3 or 4/4 lifelink that when it dies makes 4 tokens. That's absurd.
Yes.
If they go after her and you get a 1/1, you still got like a decent deal. And imagine if there's like a combat trick involved, like they go after her and you Vampire Zeal and you get 3 tokens and maybe trade for something.
Ooh. Yeah, that's insane. I have had a chance to play against this card once, and it performed very well. Yeah. I remember thinking, okay, I can deal with this, and then it was
just
like,
a very high floor on Alinda. Like, yes, she can get locked down by Luminous Bonds or Water Nut, but imagine the situation where they Luminous Bonds her, so then they start ignoring her, and then later she has an 8/8, and you're just like, I'm just going to
how am I ever going to beat this? Yeah. And of course, yeah, they can also just, it opens up a lot of doors for them as far as combat goes. They can just be like, hey, I'm going to offer all these trades now. And remember, it's each creature. So like if you trade, that's 2 counters on Alinda just right there.
So I think Alinda the Dusk Rose is an A-.
I do too. I think A- is good. It needs a little bit of extra work, but the payoff is there. Next is called Hadana's Climb. This is a legendary enchantment for 1 green blue. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if that creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you can transform Hadana's Climb into Winged Temple of Araska, which is a land that taps to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, or you can pay 1 green blue and tap it. Target creature you control gains flying and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power.
This is very good in the colors that it is. Like Merfolk do exactly want this, right? They have 1 unblockable, they have 2 unflying, they have +1/+1 counter on them, they have hexproof creatures. And when you flip this, you just kill them probably 2 hits, maybe 1 hit.
Yeah.
So I think Hadana's Climb is very good. I think that you do need to have a little bit of a board presence because otherwise you're spending 3 mana to buff a creature and not really adding much to the board. But this pressures your opponent like very few cards do.
Do you think the play pattern is to get it transformed ASAP or to just spread out counters for as long as you can?
I think you want to transform it fast because even if a creature's a 1/1 to start, you still attack them for 8. Once you transform it, then use the ability.
Right.
And even if they kill that creature, having this land in play is also just a nightmare for your opponent. It just gives a 2/2 +2/+2.
Yeah. Also cool that it makes any color of mana. That's just a neat little touch that,
Yeah, you can also tap this for mana.
Yeah. So Hadana's Climb looks really strong to me.
I think Hadana's Climb's an A-. I think it's just going to be one
I do too. Why?
Really strong cards.
What the hell? Have we ever given this many A's? This is absurd. Next is Huatli Radiant Champion. 2 green, white. So this is cheaper, 1 mana cheaper. We got a 4 mana Planeswalker here, 3 loyalty. And her +1 is put a loyalty counter on Huatli Radiant Champion for each creature you control. So loyalty begets loyalty. Interesting. Or creatures beget loyalty. In this case, -1. Now, if she comes out at 3, -1, so she would be at 2. Target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Okay. Ultimate is -8. It is miles off. It starts at 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just going to take forever. But you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters a battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. This is actually not that impressive, right?
No. Basically, Huatli kind of goes off when you have a lot of creatures and is really, really, really bad if you have no creatures. She does not protect herself. Yeah. She doesn't affect the board at all. But she does skyrocket in loyalty. If you have 3 creatures, you're getting a +4 by using her top ability.
Oh, because you get the 1 plus. Oh my God.
And you can also threaten ultimate right away, right? Like you play this, activate the +1, then next turn ultimate if you have 4 more creatures in play.
Okay, and that's why they kind of dumb down the ultimate a little bit.
Still kind of a win more card.
It does feel like that.
You have to have an established position to be good.
Yeah.
So I think Huatli's good. I think if you are white-green, you're always going to play Huatli unless you have like some sort of weird 9-creature white-green deck. But she's not a bomb planeswalker, just like Angrath isn't either. And I think she's a little worse. So I would say Huatli's she's like probably a C+. Right?
I would say B, B-. Okay. Like this is
B- is fine for Huatli.
Yeah. But don't get confused and think that Huatli's like some of the planeswalker we have where you just play it and win the game. It's more of an augmenter for your creature deck. What about Journey to Eternity?
It says 1 black-green for a legendary enchantment aura. Enchant creature you control. When enchanted creature dies, transform Journey of Eternity and return it to the battlefield under your control. It turns into Atzal, Cave of Eternity.
Well, you forgot one sentence there.
Transformed. Right.
No, not that. Sorry. So when the enchanted creature dies, you return it to the battlefield under your control, then return Journey to the Eternity too. So you actually get the creature back.
Yes.
as well.
So your creature made the journey. It returns as well.
Yes.
Alongside Atzal, Cave of Eternity, which is a legendary land, taps for 1 of any color, can also pay 3 black-green, tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Man, somebody put this on a Tender Shoot Dryad against me.
Yes.
Like, what am I supposed to do?
So the downside of this card is your opponent doesn't have to kill your creature, and in fact, there's a bunch of non-killing ways to deal with creatures like Luminous Bombs, Water Knot, exile effects, whatever. But this card is really hard to beat in the long game, and it's especially hard to beat if you can manage to set it up yourself.
Right. And especially on something that wants to get into combat, right? There's like, here's my Colossal Dreadmaw. Put Journey to Eternity into it. Attack, right? You're like, what do you, go ahead, triple block it, right?
I'm not actually sold on this card, though. I think it's a little clunky, and it runs into like problems with bounce or your opponent ignoring the creature, or just needs a lot of things to go right. And even then, when you're behind, it's I think pretty poor. So,
well, and it's also not great when you're that far ahead, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put it on your best creature, and the reason it's your best creature is because they can't block it or interact with it, they're just like, well, I guess I'll just keep taking the damage, and Journey to Eternity does nothing.
So I think Journey to Eternity gets a C.
Yeah, it does have a high upside if you can.
And in some matchups, it'll be really crushing, but it's not a card I'm gonna initially start by being very high on.
All right, we finally get to meet Kumena, Tyrant of Arazka here. This is, there's a lot of cards named after Kumena. One green blue for a 2/4 legendary Merfolk Shaman, Mythic Rare, and it's got a bunch of abilities here. You can tap another untapped Merfolk you control to make this guy unblockable. You can tap up to three untapped Merfolk you control to draw a card, and that apparently includes Kumena. And then you can tap 5 Merfolk you control to put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk you control.
So
what the hell?
I think Kumena is quite good.
Me too.
In my first draft, I actually took Merfolk Mistbinder, the Uncommon Lord, over Kumena because I think it's actually a little better.
Okay.
But Kumena is very good. It's 3 mana 2/4 is already good. With 1 Merfolk out, this can be unblockable and start cracking the opponent. And then if you get 3 or 5 Merfolk in play, you're going to start winning the game very rapidly. And 3 Merfolk get to 5 quickly because you start drawing cards.
Of course.
Kumena counts as one of those 3 as well. So
right.
If you go Kumena into Jungleborn Pioneer, you're just drawing a card on turn 4 and probably winning the game.
Right. Or if you go 2-drop Merfolk into Kumena into another Merfolk similar.
Right. That also works. So I think Kumena gets a B+.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just better than that.
Yeah, it could be an A-, I guess, but I don't know.
It does have to be in the Merfolk deck, though. I mean, it's a fine card on a 2/4 for 3.
Blue-green is going to be Merfolk so often.
So often, right? I'm going to go A- on Kumena, Tyrant of Arazka. I'm just going to assume that you're playing it in a Merfolk deck.
Fair enough.
Path of Metal is next. It's red-white for a legendary enchantment at rare. It says, when Path of Metal enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each creature that doesn't have first strike, double strike, vigilance, or haste. Weird. Whenever you attack with at least 2 creatures that have one of those abilities, you transform it into Metzali, Tower of Triumph, which is a legendary land that adds, again, 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and it has 2 activated abilities. You can pay 1 in a red and tap it to have it deal 2 damage to each opponent. You can pay 2 in a white to tap it to just choose a creature at random that attacked this turn and destroy it. What a weird card, man.
Yeah,
This is a mess of a thing to try to figure out.
I assume this card is unplayable, but it's really hard to tell because how many...
Like, you just have to look at the cards in your deck. It's just weird. Like, it might still not do anything.
You're just not going to have that many first strikers, very few double strikers, vigilance, haste.
What?
Also, can ping a bunch of your opponent's creatures if they have 1 toughness creatures without these abilities. Like, Vampire and Merfolk tokens don't have any of these abilities.
Is it just a sideboard sweeper against, like, vampires?
I think so. I think Path of Metal is like a sideboard C for confusing.
Yeah. Next card is Profane Procession. It's another sick card, by the way. It's 1 white-black for a legendary enchantment at rare. It has an activated ability. You can pay 3 white-black to exile target creature. Full stop. Just boom, exile a creature. Then, if there are 3 or more cards exiled with Profane Procession, you transform it into Tomb of the Dusk Rose. And that's a legendary land that taps for 1 mana of any color or has an activated ability of 2 white-black, tap it, put a creature card exiled with this permanent onto the battlefield under your control. What the hell?
This is my least favorite card in the set because they play it and you just lose all your hope. Look, You can beat this card.
So good.
It is slow, but it's just so crushing. And I think that there's going to be a lot of games where this card is just unbelievable. It exiles 3 of your opponent's creatures and then beats you in the face with them. Could also exile creatures on your side of the board if you want to with this card. Like, you have a creature with luminous bonds on it or whatever.
Sure.
Also, if you have 10 mana, you can activate it twice with 2 creatures under it. So you actually end up exiling 4, that you only get to put 3 of them into play.
It's unbelievable. So the play pattern is like play something, play this on 3, play something on 4, hopefully, and then on turn 5, just exile their best thing. Go.
Or just play a bunch of defensive creatures or creatures just to fill the board, and then just play this on turn 6 or 7 and win the game from there. So
it's just shockingly good.
I think Profane Procession is an A-, only A- because sometimes the draws are just too slow that you can't spend a bunch of turns using this. But you play this and you get to cast three contract killings, or something like that. Like,
and you can even do it at instant speed.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go A on Profane Procession.
Yeah, just give it an A.
It's just stupid.
You don't want to know what the A stands for. This card is
All right, next
not fun to play against.
It's called Protean Raider. I might know what the A stands for. Protean Raider's cool. It's 1 blue-red for a 2/2 shapeshifter pirate, but it's cool. It has raid, because obviously as a 3-mana 2/2, you're like, whatever, I don't want that. It has raid. It's a clone. You can put it onto the battlefield. It enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield.
So without raid, this card is quite bad, but with raid, it's very good.
It is.
And gets the, enter battlefield abilities. I
Clones
think
are good, man.
Clones are just good, and this is a 3-mana clone, even if you have to maybe send in a creature to its doom to enable the raid.
It's worth it.
I think Protean Raider gets a B+.
Me too. I got to play with it, and it played very well. Siegehorn Ceratops is next. It's green-white for a 2/2 dinosaur. And whenever it's dealt damage, it has Enrage. Whenever it's dealt damage, you get 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
Really what this reads as is white-green 2/2 unblockable.
Yes.
Because you're going to play this, and your opponent's just never going to block it, because if you have a combat trick, you end up with a 4/4, and at which point it becomes very hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Very
I played
good
against this
Hunt the
once,
Weak, too.
and I had Lightning Strike, and my opponent was tapped out, and like they only had one more card in their hand, and it, the Siegehorn was just at 2/2, and I'm like, I'm just going to kill it. Like, I don't, if it gets bigger, if it gets out of range of Lightning Strike, I don't have any way to kill it. And then it could just end up being a 6/6 at some point. And so I just killed it.
I think it's very good. I think it's
scary.
a B. I mean, it's just going to be good in the green-white deck.
Yeah, I agree. Solid card. Next is called Storm the Vault. This card's bad. It's a 2 red blue for a legendary enchantment. It says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get a treasure. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, you transform it. It becomes Vault of Catlacan, and that taps for any color of mana, and it taps for blue for each artifact you control. So this is a throwback to Tolarian Academy. Yeah.
Yeah, this card's an F.
It's just an F, yeah.
If you're getting through with damage consistently, you don't want this effect.
Okay, this next card. So I was talking to Adam about this because somebody played it against him, and he was like, isn't that too good? And I said, look, if you pay 9 mana in 3 different colors, R&D gets to do whatever they want. And they certainly did with Zakama Primal Calamity.
That said, I think Zakama Primal Calamity is a real card. It is 6 red, green, white, 9 mana.
9 mana.
Legendary Elder Dinosaur at 9/9, Vigilance, Reach, Trample. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, which limited is just all the time,
Yep.
Untap all lands you control. So it's essentially free.
It's free if you can put the down payment of 9 mana into it, yes.
It has 3 activated abilities, 1 for each head. 2 in a red, Zakama deals 3 damage to target creature. 2 in a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment. 2 in a white, you gain 3 life. This feels like a build around B.
I love this card. It's so sweet.
If you can draft Dino Ramp, which this requires, you can't put 9 mana spells in your deck unless you're working towards it. Mm-hmm. But if you cast this card, you will win the game almost every time.
Yes.
And this is a card where even if you play this and they kill it, often you'll be able to take out 2 of their creatures at the same time.
Which is exactly what happened to Adam, by the way. He was like, okay, I had the answer when I untapped, and I still just lost handily to it.
Right. And that's kind of why it's worth paying 9 and getting to there. So yeah, you shouldn't like slam this card over, Ravenous Chupacabra or whatever.
Right.
But what you should do is try to figure out how to build a dino deck that can take advantage of it. I know I certainly will.
I will too.
I think it's Clearly a build around, but it's a good one. It's a B.
I agree. Really cool. I just think that's a neat design too. All right, some colorless cards, and then we're out of here. It's called Awakened Amalgam is the first one. It's 4 mana for a star artifact creature golem at rare. It says Awakened Amalgam's power and toughness are each equal to the number of differently named lands you control.
Yeah. In limited, this is just not a thing. This could be a fun constructed card, but you have to go a long way to make this a 4/4 better, which is what it needs to be. So I think the card is a D.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's less. I think it's just an F. Like I can imagine, like, you know, you've transformed one of your things and you've got an evolving wilds that you refuse to crack, but even then you're only at 4/4 for 4, which is still.
And you have a foul orchard, and you have whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, maybe not. Whatever. I just don't think we're going to be playing Awakened Amalgam, but I would love to be proven wrong on that. Next is called Azur's Gateway. It's 2 mana for a legendary artifact at Mythic Rare. You can pay a mana, tap it to draw a card, and then exile a card from your hand. If cards with 5 or more different converted mana costs are exiled with the Gateway, you gain 5 life, untap it, and transform it into Sanctum of the Sun, which taps to add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is your life total.
Yes, this taps for 10 mana.
So are we looting with this? Is that...
Yeah, so it's 2 mana, 1 tap loot, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Instead of discard,
you don't even necessarily want to flip this a lot of the time.
No.
Because you don't need 20 mana in limited most of the time.
No.
But 2 mana, 1 tap loot, not the worst card in the world. Not something I think most decks really want. Probably good and sealed. My guess is Azur's Gateway is like a C, and you'll play it in a slower deck.
Yeah, it's probably a little... I mean... You wouldn't play 2 mana and then 1 tap loot? Like, we've played, cards similar that were scry.
Yeah, this is a little better, but...
Yeah, it's probably C+. I'll probably play it too much. Yeah, next is called Captain's Hook. What does that one do?
This is 3 colorless for a rare artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, has menace, and is a pirate. Very important, because flavorfully it doesn't make sense otherwise.
Right.
Whenever Captain's Hook becomes unattached from a permanent, destroy that permanent. You can't take the hand off without hurting yourself.
No.
It has equip 1, pretty cheap.
Oh, very cheap.
This card's good.
That's good.
If you have like a 3/3 in play and you play this and equip it on turn 4, you attack for 5, they have to deal with it. There's no real drawback. You can't pass the hook back and forth, but that's, I think, a very livable drawback.
Agreed. And
if
also,
they blow the hook up with artifact removal, you do lose the creature. That makes it worse post board. But I think you'll play this in any deck.
I think so too. It seems fine to me.
I think Captain's Hook gets a B.
Yeah, me too. I like it. A colorless card that, and especially, we always focus on the equip cost. It's only 1. Yeah. Next is called Golden Guardian. This card's cool. It's 4 mana for a 4/4 artifact creature golem, and it's got Defender. Now, it has this weird ability. You can pay 2 mana to have it fight another target creature you control. Then, if it dies this turn, return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. So if this guy dies this turn. So if that happens, it comes back to the battlefield as Goldforge Garrison, which is a land that adds mana of any one color, adds 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool, which is kind of cool already. But also it has this activated ability. 4 mana, tap it, you get a 4/4 colorless golem artifact creature token. Does not have Defender, by the way.
This card's pretty cool. I think it's good in a non-aggressive deck. I don't think you should put this in an aggressive deck.
Right.
The fight ability is nice because you can fight a 1/1. Like, you can block one of their creatures. Like, you block one of their 4/4s, then you fight one of your 2/2s. Mm-hmm. And then this dies in combat, and then you get Goldforge Garrison, which will win you a long game, and taps for 2 mana color, which is kind of nice. So you can play a 6-drop or 7-drop the next turn. Yeah,
the one rules wrinkle that's kind of interesting, though, is that it's not just when it dies, right? I think I saw some people at the pre-release that thought, well, my Golden Guardian died, so I'm going to transform it. But
yeah, it's only if you've activated the ability.
Yeah, you have to have activated the ability, right?
Which is targeted. So if they remove the target, then that ability will fizzle and it still won't get the ability.
Yeah. So you kind of do need to kill one of your own creatures or at least fight. I mean, unless you can shrink down the Guardian.
Straight build around, but I think it's like a C+.
I think so too. I played against it and it was good. It was annoying. Also, it's huge.
Threatening in play.
Yeah. It's also just huge. Like, I was trying to beat down and they're like 4/4 Defender, go. I'm like, oh, well, that brick walls me pretty hard. I mean, it's huge. So yeah, C+, maybe even a B- for Golden Guardian, depending on how easy you can flip
next one is nice. This is the Immortal Sun. It's 6 mana. It's a legendary artifact at Mythic. Players can't activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. Whatever.
Yeah.
Might as well not be there. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card.
Woohoo!
Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Creatures you control get +1/+1.
Come on. It's stupid.
This card's also an A.
It's just a straight out, flat out A.
It gets you extra cards, makes them cheaper so you can deploy them, makes all your creatures bigger. Has an effect right away because your creatures instantly get pumped. You're going to win any long game. You're probably going to win any game you cast this where you're not horrifically behind.
Yeah,
so
that's the only bad thing you can say about it.
It's also colorless. You should take this in either pack when you open it. I think the Immortal Sun's just an A.
It's an A. It's a super bomb. Silent Gravestone is 1 mana for an artifact at rare. It says cards and graveyards can't be the targets of spells or ability. Who cares? 4 mana tap it, exile Silent Gravestone, and all cards from all graveyards, draw a card. Nope.
I think this card's an F. It's just too expensive and doesn't actually host graveyard stuff all that well. You're not actually even going to side this in.
No, so it's just too much.
Stay silent.
One more card. It's a land. It's the only land. It's called Arch of Araska. It's a land that taps for colorless mana, but it's got Ascend, and you can pay 5 mana, tap it to draw a card if you have the City's Blessing.
I like this card. I think this is a viable win condition for control, and it's a pretty low cost. If you have like black-white vampires and your mana's just okay, then you can play 8 swamps, 8 plains, and play an Arch of Araska. Mm-hmm. And most of the time it won't screw you, and then the times when it's good, it's insanely good.
Yes.
So I like B+ on Arch of Araska because it's so flexible. You can put it in most decks and be pretty happy with it.
I do too. And this is just a great outlet for those games that stall out. And you will just have a significant advantage in the late game for not a huge cost. It is a cost, but it's not a huge cost. So yeah, I like B+ for Arch of Araska. Dude, we ran out of A's to give. That is, by the way, the last card. We've talked about Prince or Pauper formats. I think we've answered that question here.
Oh yeah, this is a Prince format. And I do like what Rivals has added to the format. Some of these rares are pretty dispiriting to lose to, but we'll see how it pans out, and maybe it just means you have to take answers and removal even higher than you normally would, or conserve them well. So I have enjoyed my draft so far. So definitely don't take away that I have not enjoyed the drafts. I know that the 4th time someone casts Profane Procession, I will feel like I felt the first 3 times.
Yes, so. Exactly. Yeah, but slightly worse. Yeah, I certainly think that you can have a good format with a lot of bomb rares, but I just mainly think like, wow, R&D took the gloves off with this. I mean, some of these cards are insane. All right, that's going to do it for the Rare and Mythic Rare set review show here for Rivals of Ixalan. I'll remind you that Limited Resources brought to you by channelfireball.com. Make sure you check out CFB if you need to buy any Rivals of Ixalan. You can get it on pre-order, and once it's ready to go, they will have it in the mail and out to you as quickly as possible. You can pick up some booster packs that you can draft with your friends, or some singles if you've got your eye on something for a constructed deck or whatever. And make sure you check out the awesome free content while you're there. It's free, so you may as well. If you want to find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV on basically everything. We've got links to everything that we do on lrcast.com, Luis's stream, my YouTube channel, blah, 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 blah. It's all there right on the front page, just so you don't have to go digging around for it. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for hanging out. If you want to get our first impressions of the new format, that will be next week. We'll see you then.
So I've been threatening to do this, but I actually think
what are you doing?
It might happen. Oh no, a podcast that I've been talking about with the Bensec. TBS.
Oh yeah, I talked to him about it yesterday.
So we have this idea that we're going to talk about Alpha, the first Magic set, and we actually both work in game design, and we also both very dedicated Magic fans. So we're just going to kick things around and just talk about Alpha for as long as we see fit. I want to introduce TBS a little for those who aren't aware. He's Bensec. He's an Australian Magic player. He's been playing Magic for a very long time. And I want to give you kind of a reason, or rather an anecdote that shows how lucky he is. When TBS played at one of his first Pro Tours back in 1997, I think it was his actual first Pro Tour, he decided, hey, I really like Magic. And he's like a teenager at this point. I'm gonna go to Wizards of the Coast and just see it. Make a pilgrimage, if you will. He goes to Wizards of the Coast, doesn't really even know anyone there, but they think it's pretty cool. He's this Australian dude. He's got very Australian accent, like you can tell he's from Australia, and they apparently were pretty thrilled that he came all the way from Australia to see their office. So they gave him a tour, and while he's on this tour, he
full chocolate factory mode.
One of the people at Wizards decided, hey, do you want to play Sealed Deck? So TBS plays unlimited Sealed Deck, and actually even gets to keep the
You mean
cards.
the set unlimited?
Yes, the set unlimited.
God.
They give him, him and his opponent each open a starter of unlimited, and they play sealed deck. TBS gets to keep the cards. Also, he played against Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic.
What the hell?
So,
Wow. All right. I tell you what, if you go to Wizards of the Coast headquarters today, that will not happen.
I'll tell you that much. So, TBS, awesome dude, incredibly lucky, and me and him might do something cool.
I love it. We'll set it up. The set review for Alpha.
Something along those lines, yeah. I mean, I've been looking for a good podcast to hop onto. So,
okay, well, we can talk. I know of some. All right, we did it.